Your passcode has been accepted. Please wait while you are joined to the conference.
Please stand by. We are about to begin. Good day, everyone, and welcome to the McKesson EHR Solutions with BrightNote Technology conference call. To ask a question on today's call, please press star 1 to be placed into the queue. Please be aware that you will be asked to record your name at that time. As a reminder, today's call is being recorded. And now I would like to turn the conference over to Brian Mizell. Please go ahead, sir.
Well, thank you. This is Brian Mizell, Senior Consultant with you today, calling in from beautiful, sunny Tampa, Florida. I hope it's all warm and sunshine wherever you are today. I'll be talking to you today a little bit about the BrightNote technology that's used in the McKesson EHR solutions. And so we can kind of move through some of the slides here, and we'll have a kind of a general discussion about some of the concepts around BrightNote technology and why BrightNote technology works, and a little bit about how it works. And then we can go into looking at the software itself, and I'll take you through some examples of kind of how the application is set up and the different ways that you can use it and ways to implement it within your sites. So just to kind of move forward with the slides here, and I hope everybody's moving along with me. The products that McKesson currently offers right now with the BrightNote technology are the Metasoft Clinical, Practice Partner, and Lytech MD EHR solutions. The technology is pretty much the same across all of these different products. The one that I'll be using today is the Practice Partner application, specifically the patient records. But I think if you're familiar with these systems or you're currently looking at them, you should see a lot of similarities in the design and how the BrightNote technology is leveraged in the patient records. There we go. So one of the things is we talked about physician adoption and why BrightNote technology and you know what we're seeing in the marketplace. As a consultant, I work with a lot of different physicians around the country, and actually with a lot of other applications. And one of the key things that I'm hearing from providers, centers around what these systems are going to cost, and also the disruption to their practice. I'm almost always asked a question when I come in to help out with an implementation or installation, and that generally is one that says, hey, can you tell me about how long do you think it will take for me to adopt this technology? How long will it take for me to be able to get my practice running at full capacity again? How long can we expect for my staff to be able to get up and running on this? And really that sense of what kind of disruption we're looking at in a practice really is one that is of really big concern. And so one of the things that McKesson's done a really good job of with these applications is really a lot of subtle things to be able to assist you with your adoption. One of the nice things about BrightNote technology is it is geared towards more of a physician-centric kind of a model, so that with regards to documentation and how you currently do your notes, it's going to lend itself very nicely to that. Because again, one of the things that I constantly hear from physicians is that hey, I don't type, I don't necessarily use a computer. So what is there for me to be able to use an EMR that's going to help me to overcome some of those barriers? And so really, as much as you can minimize that disruption. And then the other thing on here that you'll look just below disruption, and that's support, which McKesson's been doing an excellent job with their support to not only help you to get the system installed, but actually to help you ongoing with the management of your system, so that again you can not only be successful getting started, but you can be successful heading down the road towards meaningful use. So really the kind of the catchphrase here is, one touch sets everything into motion. And so when you start to look at, again, from a conceptual basis of what BrightNote technology is all about, really from a physician's perspective, you are charting in the preferred style that you like. If you have partners within your group, you have that ability so that everyone has different options, so that if one physician likes to chart in one method, another physician likes to chart in another, then you have really kind of a kind of a system that's going to help you with that, so that everybody doesn't necessarily have to conform to the same method of charting. But ultimately, from the BrightNote system, the patient record itself is going to populate with the pertinent data that you need to capture, including things like past family social histories, medication lists, allergies, problem lists, so that all of the different elements of information that you need to have within your chart are going to be generated from that note. And then kind of, controversially, you're going to have that information coming back to you in your note, so that as you need to access pertinent information to use with good clinical decision making, that information will be presented to you in the BrightNote as well. So as we kind of move forward and take a look at that, I think you'll kind of see what I'm talking about, but ideally it helps a physician to be able to stay in a context of a single node instance and accomplish the tasks they need to. And so this is kind of a synchronization, if you will, or kind of walking you through the steps where you can work within a single node instance. From that node instance, you're able to populate all the various areas of your chart, and that data, if you will, ultimately is what's going to allow for you to generate usable information about your patients, about the diseases that you're managing, about ongoing care management and care management plans. And so really, again, when you think about how this is described, the whole one touch sets everything into motion, really that kind of embodies really the overall concept of what BrightNote technology is all about. So we talk about preferred charting style, and this is one that I actually really do like, and I think it plays well to a lot of things that I see in the marketplace these days, because everybody may have a unique way or a different way that they like to be able to interact with the system. And so things like having speech recognition available for those of you that are comfortable with a tool like Dragon, or working with templates that help to kind of structure the information that you're capturing, not so different from, say, that of what you may use for your intake forms or your patient history forms. Obviously, the keyboard with any computer is kind of a must. And certainly, if you pay someone to type for you, and we call those folks transcriptionists, you can support transcription through the BrightNote technology as well. What's, again, exciting about all of this is that, BrightNote's ability to convert whatever preferred charting method you would like to use, it can still follow you through that pathway that I just showed you. So not only am I inputting in my preferred method, but I'm still gathering the necessary data elements in the patient chart. So that again is kind of a unique characteristic because again, many systems out there that I've seen, they limit that where, yes, you could chart in your preferred method, but if you ultimately want to get to the rich, discrete data, the usable information, you're going to kind of have to conform to the way that they want you to use the system. And this system with McKesson really doesn't follow that same path. So again, kind of working like a physician, I get asked a lot about whether or not a system like this is intuitive, and I always take the term intuitive as, okay, does it work and think a lot like I would as a physician? And the answer is really yes. That's exactly what it's doing. It comes with a lot of built-in content, like for instance the templates and that sort of thing. But one of the things I will say about that is that at the end of the day, you can have many templates in these EHRs, but I always ask which one is the one that's going to work for you. And so if you have the ability to be able to configure templates easily so that you can modify them so that they will conform to your workflow or to how you prefer to go through documentation, that's going to get you far further down the road for your adoption than trying to wade through 300, 1,000, 5,000 templates trying to figure out, okay, which template do I use for which complaint or which circumstance or which encounter. And so, again, we can take a look at some of that content, but certainly also walk through some of the process and the ease by which you can actually go in here and update a template within the system. So that's about it from the slide presentation. I try to keep those relatively short. I'm more of a software guy. I tend to like to play with the application and be able to kind of walk you through that so you can kind of get a feel for all the things that it can do. So let me go ahead and share my desktop with you so we can actually take a look at the software. And So we'll just pause for a moment for station identification. And hopefully what you're going to see very quickly is the practice partner application, specifically the dashboard. So I'll wait a couple of seconds. Just to note, I'm actually working off of version 9.4. They have released the 9.5 version since this demonstration copy that I have, which is the certified version of the McKesson products and for practice partner. So there are quite a few differences just in terms of the reporting capabilities and some of the unique identifiers that are used in the 9.5 version. So hopefully we'll be able to show that to you, or you can tune into maybe the meaningful use presentations where perhaps they'll be showing that latest version. But the bulk of how the system is set up for BrightNotes, I think you'll get my point looking at the 9.4 version. So this is the dashboard. I'll take you through 2 or 3 quick screens before we kind of go in to dive into BrightNote, just to kind of orient you with the system. A lot of systems out there, dashboards are very common. They make a lot of sense. They've got a lot of utility. This is the McKesson dashboard, integrated in with things like scheduling. So as patient appointments are added, patients are canceling, as they move through various stages in the process and workflow within your practice, you're going to see all of that here in real time from your schedule on your dashboard. You'll see things like the message center and the to-do center. These are centers for communication in and around your practice. So I can literally from my dashboard send a secure message over to the nurse with instructions or over to another user, maybe another physician in the system. And I can also assign to-dos for those individuals. So if I want to generate tasks or different things that I want them to get accomplished, I can do that as well. And I can also assign tasks to myself. I always get asked kind of the question, what's the difference between sending someone a to-do and sending them a message? In this system, messages ultimately are what can become recorded into the chart. So as you think about automated release of information or being able to, provide the chart with all of the relevant content regarding, treatment for patient, you're going to generate your messages to be able to kind of track those types of communications between you and your nurse or you and another physician. Lab Review Bin and Note Review Bin, this is really another point of integration with the system. So where you would have laboratory interfaces available, those interfaces would flow into the Lab Review Bin, as would any of the recorded lab results that maybe you've received there within the system. But the nice thing is they all kind of move here to the dashboard. And the Note Review Bin is really where you're going to get into unsigned notes, fax documents, various types of both internal and external documents maybe that have been scanned that you need to be able to review and sign off on are all going to be displayed here in the Note Review Bin. So that's really the dashboard. Let me take you to the next screen, and that's really looking at the chart itself. And this is where you're going to see what I like to refer to as a lot of deliberate development from the folks at McKesson, because small, subtle things that they've done with this particular display, I find that physicians are able to kind of use to their advantage when we try to get adoption, to get folks using the system. I always say, even if you as a physician are comfortable with this, you're going to have staff turnover, you're going to hire new people, and the question is going to be how long does it take for them to get trained and up and running on your EHR. And so when we look at small things like, for instance, how the icons along the top are all labeled. That's just a nice little feature that you see from McKesson, because I don't have to memorize the hieroglyphic card that comes with the software to remind me that if I want to start a note for this patient, I just go to the note icon. And I know that seems very subtle, but that gives you some insight as to the kind of detail that they're adhering to with the design of the system. The layout is very similar to a paper chart, and so again, as you're bringing on new staff or a new provider who is unfamiliar with an electronic system, been using paper charting for a long time, this should look relevant. This should lay out and be familiar to them, so that when they see this for the first time, they can look at this and say, yeah, that looks an awful lot like a shingle chart. The tabs that you see all on the side are configurable, so you have options with regards to changing some of the tabs so that they can kind of fit your current chart nomenclature. And you'll see the blues in the center indicates content. So I can see very quickly if I was looking for a referral document or a therapy form or something along that lines, disability forms for this patient, that there aren't any without having to actually go into that particular area of the chart. You also get things like patient picture, integration with scheduling, which is nice. So as new appointments are being scheduled, that's going to update here. Demographics throughout the system, so as the patient changes their name. I always get asked about the photograph. I mean, we're seeing more and more where patients are having their pictures taken and associated with their EMR, and I always get asked, is that something that they're going to be comfortable with? And what I'll say is, practically speaking, it is. Most folks are, carrying a driver's license these days, so they can have DMV and get their picture taken. My wife always says, she never really wants her photograph taken to the doctor's office because she's usually sick, and she doesn't really have a good picture to be taken when she's sick going to the doctor's office. So the good news is, she can go down to the glamour shots and have her photograph taken down there with a great modeling photo and bring it in on a disc or on a thumb drive and hand it to her, to the office manager, and they can load that image on there. So regardless of what the sales reps may tell you, you don't need to buy a super expensive digital camera to be able to make this work. So, and I know they always kind of grit their teeth a little bit when I make that comment. But again, we are seeing, the photograph, and in all seriousness, it's great for compliance. It's really good for you to be able to quickly reference if the person sitting in front of you is in fact the chart that you have open. So again, it's a nice feature to be able to have. So the last screen we'll look at before we actually go into the Bright Notes is the Bright Note itself, and this is a shared note that we'll be using shortly, and we'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment. But this is really the Bright Note. And again, you can kind of see when you look at it that that's exactly what it looks like. It's it's a big bright screen. It's a full screen. It's not a small little box or a window that's minimized in the corner. Everything that you need to do really can be accomplished from right here on this screen. And so if I wanted to just start typing on here, I could literally type on the screen if I want to. If I wanted to go ahead and fire up speech recognition with a tool like Dragon, I could go ahead and start doing that. I could open up a template, for instance, and work off of the many templates in the system. So really, when we start talking about preferred charting style, you can kind of start to see that here in the Bright Note. You'll see some navigation tabs, hopefully along the bottom, and if you're having difficulty seeing the bottom part of the screen, you may want to press F5 on your keyboard. That should enlarge it to a full screen view. But these tabs along the bottom that say Summary, Chart, Progress Notes, and so on, these are what allow you to navigate into other areas of the chart while you're doing documentation and literally be able to view multiple things at the same time. I'm often asked, if I could view a lab result and then document my note about that lab result, and that's exactly what these tabs along the bottom allow you to do. So let me go ahead and, enough of me talking, and let me kind of show you, a documented note in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work off of Margaret Smith that we can see here on the dashboard. We can see that shared note. And really the concept behind a shared note is really allowing about collaboration and generating a note. So for instance, if you have a practice where your MA or your nurse goes in and kind of starts things going, so maybe they're taking vitals, they go ahead and do the HPI, maybe they go ahead and update past family social histories, and really kind of just start things out, then you can do that in this system, and it generates what's known as a shared note. That allows for you to come in kind of for your part and be able to work off of that information, still edit it, still add to it, whatever you like. But then again, you can go in and kind of work off of that same note, and then that's all tracked throughout the system. So we'll start with that shared note. So this is an instance where Margaret Smith really has already been, seen. She's got her vitals taken. She's got the, kind of the front side of the encounter done. And so what I'm going to do is use a tool like Dragon to not only kind of go back there and do some dictation, but also create some relevant information from the, from the note. And also, I'll go ahead and do a little navigation just so you can kind of see some of the flexibility. I built this one time for a physician who came to me and said, I don't ever really want to use an EMR until I can talk to it, and it'll do exactly what I want it to do. So kind of keep that in mind as you kind of watch me go through this part. And some of the things I will say, hopefully you don't have to act out on, just kind of watch. Open chart. Smith. Look up. Down 2. OK. Show problem list. Escape. show medications, escape, show orders, escape, new note, yes. So you can kind of see that navigation, and again, for the provider who says, I'm not touching it, you have that option available. Obviously, there's some settings and things that you have to do, but it's not very complicated. But it does give you the flexibility of being able to navigate in and around the system so that if you do want to be able to kind of go completely hands-off, you have that option. Now we can kind of see here in the shared node, the bright node's changed a little bit. So this is where I have a template specifically for a patient coming in with a cough today. And you can kind of see where the template itself has started a lot of that documentation. Margaret Smith, 68-year-old female, presents this day with a complaint of a cough. Again, this is all bright node technology. So as Margaret Smith would be, would age, 69 years old, 70 years old, this is going to update looking at the demographics in the system. I can provide content anywhere I want here. So I can, like I like to say, I can touch all this. So it's not to say that I have to go back and open up another screen or open up a dialog box or make another point and click in order to be able to work with the content that you see here. So all of this is editable. All of this I can manage. You'll see red and blue text here. This is what's allowing for pick lists and embedded text to be able to drop in so that I can save time, and we can go into that after this example. But I can scroll through here, see relevant information that's come in from the chart, or things like her problem list or medications. I can see she's not smoking, she's not hanging out with anybody who is, and she doesn't work in a coal mine. So all these are good things for her. I can also see that my vitals are displayed here, and again, that's because that's where I want them to be displayed. When we start looking at template configuration, you'll be able to see how easily I can move things around and modify my templates so that, again, had I wanted vitals to be at the top, I could put them at the top, I could put them anywhere I want. So I'm going to drop my cursor here. I'm going to do a short dictation. This is the part where I explain I'm not a physician, so I try to sound like one, try to stay relevant, but at the end of the day, I am from the South. I'm a master at butchering the English language. Didn't do well with my Latin course, so ultimately I try to get these great clinical words out as best I can, but again, hopefully you're not laughing too much at me this afternoon as I try to struggle through doing a physical examination plan. We'll do some orders, medication, as well as a follow-up. That patient looks normal except for an acutely ill appearance, period. Ears are clear with TMs translucent and no inflammation, period. Mouth shows mucous membranes to be moist with no mucosal lesions, period. Pharynx shows no inflammation and no tonsillar hypertrophy, period. Heart had a regular rate and rhythm with no murmur or gallop, period. Lungs normal except for wet rails heard over the left base, period. Paragraph. Patient is clinically stable with no contraindications to outpatient treatment, period. New paragraph. New major problem, pneumonia. New order chest x-ray. New order CBC. New order hemoglobin. New medication, Levaquin. Follow-up. Follow-up call to patient within 24 hours. Close note. Okay. 9. Go problem list. Escape. Show medications. Escape. Show orders. Escape. Show progress note. And I'll just scroll down here so you can kind of take a look at that. So that's using a tool like Dragon with BrightNote technology, and as I hope you kind of gathered with some of the things that I did there, I'd like to go back and take a look at that problem list because of the element I wanted you to notice was this active pneumonia diagnosis there. that I placed on here from the note itself. And granted, whether or not she ultimately had pneumonia, hopefully she didn't, but went ahead and gave her that anyway. But you can see here, what becomes really relevant about this is this becomes a searchable piece of data. I mean, this becomes information that we can work from, whether it's for billing purposes, whether it's for research or tracking disease groups, whether it's for just simply going back and saying, hey, look, I'd like to see how many patients I treated last year that had pneumonia. That's the kind of thing that you're able to generate from the BrightNote technology, and as you saw, updating various areas of the chart, not only with data, but also with actionable things like order sets and different types of orders, where from the note, if you choose to be able to push notes or push orders from your notes, you have that ability to access essentially kind of into the order entry system, and not only be able to place an order, but be able to have that system configured so that facilities are already set up and orders are kind of directed in the right place, where you have an operator already configured. So as you saw, those were heading over to my nurse, for the nurse to pick up and kind of run with. And again, I didn't have to go into a lot of verbal detail with that. Again, with the configuration that you can do, it really just kind of helps you to be able to stay in a central location there within the note, and ultimately be able to push that information out into the pertinent areas of the chart. And you can see the completed note. Another question I get asked a lot about is, what does a note look like when you're done? A lot of these systems are, known for spitting out 30, 40-page documents, and I'm sure many of you have been a recipient of those documents. And so it just becomes convoluted. The BrightNote allows for it, you to be able to compress information, format that information, remove extemporaneous things that you're not necessarily wanting to show up, and so you do end up with a nice, clean, concise, easy to read, easy to understand note, so that when you send this out, you're not going to be one of those culprits that's adding to the destruction of our rainforest by producing many, many pages that are unnecessary. So that's kind of using drag, and I want to take you through and let's take a look at an actual note template. And so we'll just stick with Margaret here for the sake of time, and I'll go in and grab just a cough template just to kind of stay within the family of what I just did. And as you'll see here, the template itself, you can have this formatted to look different, to be able to work with it. The nice thing about templates is they structure the data collection and documentation. So in the example that I did previously, where maybe you might want to structure the information that your nurse is gathering, so you want to be able to, kind of have a nurse's template, if you will, or maybe again, if you're doing, different types of disease state work, you want to ensure that you're capturing all the pertinent information or recordable information. And that's a nice thing about a template and what it will do for you. But you can see here how I've got, in this case, the vitals are up high, calculated BMI, 68-year-old female, and now we can go in and work with some of these things, like for instance, duration. I've got a patient that has a pretty smile. We need to get that out of there, so we may go back and modify that to remove it. But I can go in and say, 2 to 3 weeks, and just put in the information that's relevant. And as I skip over information or documentation, you'll see here I have it set so that information grays out. That's because ultimately what we want to have happen is for that to disappear from my completed note. However, at any point in time, I can come back up here in the context of the note and say, okay, wait a minute, I meant to document that. And I can document that, and I can say, it was very runny, or something along that lines. I mean, again, great clinical documentation there, I know, but you kind of get the gist of where I'm going with this, I hope. But you can see as I go through and work the various areas of review of systems and documentation, that the system is fairly straightforward and easy to move through. You see here, for instance, the problem list, where you can see the pneumonia that we just put on there now back over here, so you can see how quickly that can kind of turn around. We can see the smoking that we had answered before. But you'll note here now I've got an opportunity to put in additional complaints. And so one of the nice things about these BrightNotes is that you can do multiple complaints in here. You don't have to have one note for every single complaint, and that's a great time saver. I've seen systems that kind of adhere to a process that, if the patient comes in with one issue, it's great. But if Margaret here had 3 or 4, which I find, in a lot of the, adult primary medicine, I mean, how often do we get somebody who walks in who just has one problem? You really want to have that ability to do multiples, and certainly the Bright Note allows for you to do that. You can see rather than a, dictation, now I've got, a templated form of doing my objective and physical examination, so I can say she looks normal except, she has an acutely ill appearance. I can check the ears, I can check the mouth, the throat, listen to her heart, and then even document the abnormality that I noticed on the left base of the lung. So you can kind of see that follows that same dictative approach, but now I'm kind of working through that in more of a template. And then I can have predefined assessments in here so that, by selecting those, now I can drop, as you hopefully understand now, a problem in here, and then this would leave my note and go to the chart and go to the billing system. But again, having that all right there within a node template, it really does just, it minimizes how many, clicks, if you will, you have to go through in order to be able to do your documentation, how many different locations you have to go to, and really ultimately is what's going to save you some time. Let's look at one other different type of node template while we've got a few minutes. This is one that I like to show because, as you've seen in the last couple, it's more of a SOAP style of note. Those of you that do dictation now are probably more comfortable with the narrative or more of a dictative transcribed type of note. You can set these templates up, and many of them come like this, to allow for you to be able to have more of a narrative style note template. And so this is one I show for a shoulder evaluation. And in this one, you'll see, again, a little bit more like the narrative approach, and this uses a lot of great technology in the Bright Note. It's called conditional logic. And what conditional logic allows for is variability in gender, or based on test results, or based on diagnoses, and it will literally change the context of the documentation within the note by looking at those key elements within the patient's record. So, for instance, I had an opportunity of seeing Margaret in my office today. She is a pleasant 68-year-old female, again, who was referred in for evaluation of her right-left shoulder. So, again, had I opened this in a male chart, those would have been totally different. And so it is, while it looks, on the front end, fairly intuitive, fairly easy, there's an awful lot going on in the back end to really kind of support you and help you to be able to be, smooth in your documentation process. So we can say she was referred in for her right shoulder that she injured. I've been treating it conservatively for the last couple of weeks, specifically with exercise, and we'll give her some injections. So you see how I can kind of build through this, and as I'm indicating various responses, what you'll have basically is a kind of a completed narrative of my documentation. And then when you get to the bottom here, this is more of a procedural-based note that I like to call it, where the problem's already there, the procedure's actually already there, and so what I end up with is really kind of a documentation that I could literally send out or fax out to a referring or to a referring physician, or findings back to the physician who referred the patient in. And so again, it kind of helps you to be able to stay within the Bright Note, but again, a lot of technology being brought to bear here, a lot of good technology that ultimately is going to help you to really kind of document in a way that you feel comfortable. So I promised I would go back and show you a little bit about the configuration, because I think this is pretty critical. I get a lot of systems out there that I work with, and the biggest challenge you find is you've just about got to be a programmer in order to understand how to go in there and make a change. This system really was designed from a perspective that said, it would allow for physicians, if they chose, to be able to learn how to do configuration of these node templates, that you could do it yourself. And really, I think that's important. Doesn't mean you have to do it. Certainly, McKesson does an awful lot of it. But at the end of the day, as I always like to say, you're buying the system, which means you're going to own it. And so as much as you can understand, the ease of which things can be done, then that's going to help you to be able to adopt the system over time, because, you'll use it one way in the first 90 days, but I can tell you, thereafter you're going to start making changes, you're going to start modifying and tweaking it so that it's really optimal for how you need to use it in your practice. So we'll go into, in a lot of cases, what folks consider a scary place, which is into maintenance and configuration, and we'll go in here and look at the note templates themselves, and specifically let's go back and grab that cough template, because I had that pretty smile in there, and normally I don't want that in there. So I'm going to go ahead and just say OK, and now you can see where we have the patient has a pretty smile. So yeah, that's not very relevant. So let's get rid of that. So I can edit that. And actually, let's do something even funner. I'm going to take it off of here. So I'm just going to do a Control X and just delete it. But maybe when I'm doing a patient with abdominal pain, I would like to know whether or not the patient has a pretty smile. Again, nothing necessarily relevant about it, but it's easy for us to do. And so now I'm going to come back over here and basically just past here, put a few spaces, and we'll drop that in there. And we'll go ahead and, we can clean up the font if we want to. We can make different changes in look and feel and that sort of thing. And so I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And we'll move back out, and we'll just keep picking on Margaret because she's kind of our patient for the day. Go back and take a look at a note with specifically that template for abdominal pain. And we should be able to see down here that, yeah, the patient has a pretty smile, and we'll say yes. It's very, very pretty. So that's, that's template modification. That's, taking things off of one template, putting on another. What I will tell you from that is that one of the nice things about the community of users with these products, both the Practice Partner, the Litech MD, and the Metasoft Clinical, is that there is a very, very active user base for all of these. That user base provides content and template build, suggestions, ideas across all the users. So if you think for a moment about what I just showed you and say to yourself, okay, what if I had a portion of a template that I wanted to share that with somebody else? Then it's just as easy as what you saw me do there. I can pick that up, I can copy it out, drop it in an email, drop it in a Word document, paste it to them, and then they can pick that up and drop that content into their template and they can work with it. That allows for an enormous amount of information sharing across the physician communities that use this product. And I think that that makes a very, very strong case when you start considering about looking at clinical guidelines and establishing best practices, because obviously there's a lot of rich clinical content out there, but when we apply it into the setting of the electronic medical record, we're able to kind of take that to a whole new level, and where we can see users of a system literally sharing that information dynamically. It just really, really is an enormous impact in improving adoption and ultimately, best practice utilization. So the thing I would tell you is, within these communities, you're not alone. And it's not just you and the vendors, not just you and McKesson. It's you and the literally thousands of other physicians that use this same system that have the ability to interact with one another. They also have an outstanding user group meeting every year. I believe this year it's in Orlando, Florida, which was great for me. I'm not too far from there. But ultimately, that's a very well-attended event, and the same type of information sharing that I talked about on the forums takes place there as well. So it's not all about the just the ease of the configuration, but it's what you can do with being able to share information and modify it. So that's kind of a high-level BrightNote technology overview. We can go ahead and open it up for questions now. Before we do so, I just want to thank you in advance. I know it's tough on an afternoon sitting around listening to a guy like me talk for 45 minutes. I know my wife doesn't like it, so hopefully you had yourself a hot cup of coffee and I didn't put everybody to sleep. So if any of you have questions, we can certainly entertain those for a few minutes.
Thank you. And if you'd like to ask a question over the phone, you can do so by pressing star then 1 on your telephone keypad. If you're using a speakerphone, please make sure your mute function is turned off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. Please be aware that you will be asked to record your name. Again, please press star 1 at this time if you'd like to ask a question. We'll go first to Nancy.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. I have a question. We currently are using Practice Partner, and my question is how do you get your orders to print?
Okay, so that's a great question. Basically, what you're asking about is the actual orders module itself. And so if you want to have orders that drop to paper, like in the form of like a requisition form or something along that lines, those are available within the system. They do have to be, configured. But again, you configure them just like in many cases a lot of other templates that you work with and a lot of other forms here. And if you go into like the maintenance and go into the templates down in the form templates, you'll see things like requisition forms down there. And then there's some feature settings within the orders module itself that will allow for you to determine whether or not that needs to be dropped to paper or whether or not you're going to push that out electronically. But you can certainly do that. It's a definite feature within the system. And that's just a great question because we didn't really dive into the orders module. Good news is I could spend an hour talking about orders, but I will tell you, you can absolutely do that, and it's very configurable. And you know, you can, if you have questions about that sort of thing, or questions about how to set it up, I'd be happy to answer those. Or you can email the support folks at McKesson. You can also go on the user forum, and folks out there will help you as well. And there's a lot of good documentation out there on how to do it.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. At least I know somebody's. I was worried everybody was asleep, so.
And we'll go to our next question from Rick Flynn.
Hi, Brian.
Hello, Rick Flynn. How are you?
Very well. Yourself?
Oh, you know, I'm doing great.
Excellent. I like the idea of the preferred charting style, but I'd like to maybe use an iPad to go from room to room or touchscreen systems in the rooms.
Sure.
Will the system support that well?
Okay, so here's where I'm, as a consultant, I will walk the fine line with the McKesson application. I will tell you that I have seen users that are interacting with the software in the iPads. To my understanding, it is not currently supported by McKesson. So I would caveat that you could do it, but it's a kind of a use at your own risk. I've seen good success with it. I have physician users that are using it that way.
To actually do the charting, or just to look up what has
mostly just to look up. What I found is that the charting is a little complicated. The iPad real estate on the screen necessarily isn't the greatest for something like this.
Could you use a touch screen in the office though, like a tablet?
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I have a physician user that they have actually one of the large HP's monitors mounted on the wall that's touchscreen, and they'll actually go through and work with it that way. I think that ultimately, I've done plenty of workflows where I'm exclusive in the tablet. There are some tools out there on the market that you should know about. Supplementing with something like Dragon is helpful. There's also a tool out there called WritePen from a company called Evernote, which is an excellent tool for supplementing tablets in handwriting recognition. Not necessarily a big fan of all the tablet handwriting tools that they come with, but the folks from Evernote have a really slick application that I've worked with specifically in Practice Partner, and might be something you might want to check out. But definitely, we're seeing. You're seeing all kinds. I mean, with tablets, laptops, desktops.
It seems like the iPad's the new toy, and it's just, they don't have a mouse for it. They really don't have a stylus for it or anything else. I was just wondering how well it would work.
I have one, and my wife got a hold of it, and I haven't seen it since. So
the kids didn't get it or something.
I think they're into it as well. So therein lies your other complication if you're trying to use it in your practice. So.
Well, I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you have a great day.
As a reminder, that is *1 if you'd like to ask a question. And we'll go to our next caller. And if you did queue up for a question, your line is now open.
Yes, this is Dr. Liu. I'd like to ask if we could diagram in the patient's record, and is this integrated with the billing system?
Okay, sure, great. Absolutely. You do have images within the system that you can diagram off of, and you can do that in a couple of different ways. You can just kind of free-form diagram. I'm not a good artist, so this is kind of my failed attempt at trying to draw Mickey Mouse since I'm close to Orlando. But if you're not good with drawings and you want to be able to work with templates, the system comes with pre-stocked image templates that you can drop in, and then you can modify those templates. And so since I am in Tampa Bay, probably a little more relevant to my location would be something that looks like this. But you can certainly go in and annotate an image. You can add text to it. And then associate that with the note that you're documenting in, go back and view that later. And it basically acts like an attachment to the note itself. so that if you go to print that note out or provide that note, it will ask if you want to print any associated images with that. So it kind of ties all that together. And then I believe your other question, you have to remind me again, I'm sorry, was regarding the other half of your question, I'm sorry.
Integration with the billing.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Yes, integration with billing. Yes, this is a fully integrated product with all of the varying billing applications in the McKesson line. So whether it is the Metasoft billing, the LITech billing, or the Practice Partner billing, this even goes all the way up into the large enterprise installations that use the Horizon Practice Plus Central Billing Office application. So yes, all of these tie back into this does tie back into all of those various types of billing systems.
Is this a web-based EHR, or there's a capability also for like a license to license the software?
You have, there's a couple of options there. They do offer what you refer to as an ASP version, which is what I would deem more of a web-based, subscription-based type of service. I tend to see more users on the installed application where they'll come out and actually install it on a PC there within your practice. If you're interested in remote access, there's a number of different tools available, things like Citrix that you can use to be able to provide this over a network or allow for yourself to be able to have access from home. There's also another add-on product called WebView, which is the fully integrated patient portal, or I should say integrated portal record, if you will. It's kind of a view only, but it would allow for you to be able to view into a patient record and be able to see pertinent information from the web as well. So there's definitely some options there, depending on what you're looking to accomplish, what your needs are.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the questions. People are listening.
Our next question will come from Deborah Jacobs.
Hi.
Hey, Deborah. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
I have a question regarding DICOM images for a spine surgeon. So are there ways to upload MRI images and CAT scans and whatnot?
You know, I always love the surgeons and the orthopedics and the folks that got these great DICOM images, and they're like, hey, can we get rid of our packs? What can we do about that? Here's what I'm going to tell you is just kind of my general rule of thumb. An archiving system like PACS is designed for what it's designed for, and your EMR is designed for what it's designed for.
Mm-hmm.
The answer to your question is, can I support an image file format in here like a DICOM image and be able to view that? Mm-hmm. You can, as long as that DICOM is generally, converted into some type of a grayscale image format, like your JPEGs, your bitmaps, your TIFFs, and that sort of thing.
Okay.
I would caution, as you start to go down that path, because the thing with DICOM imaging and with PACS in general is that they're built with a robust storage capability, and regardless of the EMR that you may look at, most EMR systems are not designed for that. And so what you would find is if I began pulling these, the DICOM images are larger. As you'd start pulling those into an EMR over time, you could find yourself with some type of diminished response rate. And then what you do is you end up kind of out in this deep hole over that you've dug for yourself with all of these images in here. It's like, okay, now how do I get them all out? So, as you're kind of making your, if you're looking at different applications and that sort of thing, I'd caution you just to be careful about it. But again, if you want to be able to link those into the system, you can do that. So, where you could be able to almost like a URL launch, if you will, allow you to go over and view an image, and it will support all the different type of image formats, including even movie files. So if you're into things like catheterization videos and that sort of thing, I don't know. You can do those as well.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. Great question.
And again, as a final reminder, that is *1 if you'd like to ask a question. We'll move next to Patrick.
Hey, Brian. How's it going?
Hey, it's going great, Patrick. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. So are you able to add text to you before you were showing an example where you were handwriting some text onto a scanned image? Are you able to handwrite text using Write Pen and then save the image, with the handwriting intact using Write Pen?
You cannot with Write Pen, and that's the Evernote product I think you're referring to. You can drop text in there, but to save the annotated image itself, you've got to use the editing tool within the application in order to be able to save that annotation.
You have to use
there's been some, I don't know if there's been any exploration about being able to further integrate WritePen to allow for it to do that. I think it would be a great idea because it's an excellent tool. But to my knowledge, at this time, you can't like go in and draw circles around things and that sort of thing.
Okay, and the same. What about? I imagine I already know the answer to this question, but what about with forms in the system? Is it kind of the same thing? You know, like if there's a, you know, like a questionnaire type thing that we may have in the system, and you write and you mark it up with a WritePen. Same.
If you make the with the WritePen now, if you make the form into an image template, you can definitely go in there and make changes to it. The other thing I would say with being able to form completion is the tool Instant Medical History. I actually just installed that program here in the Tampa Bay area. And with a lot of success, it fully integrates into this system, but it's basically, patient interviewing software where you could take the patient, through an interview form, and it will convert that into the BrightNote. And then you can go in there and use it just like you would generate it as a progress note in BrightNote. And it does all the same functionality. It's really, really cool.
Okay, cool. But with regards to WritePen, nothing, for now, nothing will save. Embed
No, aside from using it, like I've suggested, where you could go in and generate text, you could create macros and insert, volumes of text using WritePen. To my knowledge, you can't actually annotate the images with it yet.
Okay. One other thing, can you do it? I think you already said this. Can you do it in Evernote with the WritePen?
Yes. You mean as far as working with Evernote and then being able to drop that in? Is that?
Right, yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. All right, great. I think that's it.
Okay, great. Well, appreciate it.
And thanks.
Thank you. All right, you have a good one.
And at this time, Mr. Mizell, there are no further questions. I'd like to turn the conference back over to you for any additional or closing remarks.
Okay, great. Well, hey, I just would like to say thank you to all of you for joining us today. I hope this was informational. Again, I hope I didn't knock anybody out or put you to sleep. Certainly, as you're kind of moving forward with your decisions on and choices for your electronic medical record, I would encourage you to continue to ask the same kind of questions that you've asked me today. Ultimately, this is the time where, as we're moving forward from the paper-based system that we've been on, it's very exciting. And I would encourage you to read and ask good questions and look around and certainly make choices that you feel are good for you. But at the end of the day, I think we all can agree that this move towards the electronic record is going to be a good one. And certainly when we take into consideration long-term patient care and clinical guideline development, best practices, and that sort of thing, that once we get there, we are going to have enormous amounts of information that ultimately are going to go towards improving the outcomes of patients with chronic conditions. So I want to thank you for taking the time, and certainly, again, good luck, and hope you all have a great day.
And once again, that does conclude today's conference call. Thank you for your participation.